eNCA online, about to cross through to Dianne Hawker, who's been reporting from the Oscar Pistorius trial, where Judge Masipa has been giving the details of her verdict in the murder trial. Dianne, you're outside the court right now. Can you tell us what is the atmosphere out there at the moment?
Well, Erin, there are a number of people that are standing around court, many of them who are waiting to see Oscar Pistorius before he left. I'm just going to turn slowly and flip my phone camera around so that you can see some of them. I'm hoping that you're able to make out some of the people standing here at the bus stop, many of whom are giving some commentary to the journalists who still remain here at court. Earlier on, before Oscar Pistorius left, many of them were standing in a sort of guard of honor, waiting for him to leave court. A lot of them wanted to speak to him, and they cheered him on as he actually left the court building, showing a lot of support for him. By contrast, the Reva Steenkamp's family left quite quietly. Her and her family and their supporters left quite quietly through a side entrance at court, and there wasn't as much fanfare for them.
Do you think that suggests that there's more of a sense of victory or good fortune, good luck on the side of Oscar Pistorius and his fans than say for the Steenkamps?
I'm not sure whether it indicates that or it's just that he's, become this massive personality. I mean, if you think about it, this trial has been on everyone's TV screen since March this year. People have been watching the trial on their computer screens, that many people are watching our Google Hangout right now. They've been following the tweets, and he was already a personality, but the trial has in a way turned him into an even bigger personality. Anyone who didn't know Oscar Pistorius before this trial definitely knows who he is at this point, Jared.
And in terms of the trial and what we heard today, Dianne, Judge Masipa saying after the lunch break that Oscar Pistorius was irresponsible, that his behavior was not what was kind of considered, or she considered, fair for a regular, normal person with his disability. Can you just go through what she went through and what she said after lunch?
Yes, went through what would be her reasoning when dealing with a possible charge of culpable homicide. And what she said was that it was important when looking at that charge to consider what a reasonable person would have done in the circumstances, in the exact same circumstances. She also mentioned that when doing that reasonable man test, you'd have to consider not just any reasonable person, but someone who has the same educational background, the same cultural background, a similar disability to what Oscar Pistorius was suffering. And she said that even when looking at the case and considering those factors, she believed that he acted negligently because there were a number of things which Oscar Pistorius could have done other than going towards the bathroom and shooting those 4 shots through that closed bathroom door. And she even gave examples, mentioning that he could have gone to the balcony, which was on the side of the bedroom where Oscar Pistorius was at the time that he heard a sound in the bathroom. She also mentioned that he could have called the security for the complex or the police to alert them of what he had heard, and that he felt his life was in danger. So, considering that he didn't do all of those things, she said that she believed he acted negligently.
And now, where do we stand? Where do we stand on the verdict at the end of today's court proceedings?
Well, Judge Masipa left us on a sort of a cliffhanger. We'd come back from lunch at German, and just about 30 minutes later, she ended off by saying that she found that Oscar Pistorius was negligent, and left it there. We haven't yet gotten into the charges relating to the Tasha shooting incident. And there the state is accusing Oscar Pistorius of discharging his weapon in a public place illegally in contravention of the Firearms Control Act. There's also the issue of the incident involving the sunroof shooting, and there the state are also alleging that he acted in contravention of the Firearms Control Act by discharging a firearm in a crowded area with no apparent reason. there's then the final charge is one of illegal possession of ammunition, and that's relating to ammunition that was found in Oscar Pistorius' safe at his house. Now those are the charges which the Judge Masipa still has to give a verdict on, and then we'll have to see from there whether there's any appeal to any of her findings, or whether we'll go directly into sentencing procedures.
Yes, and in terms of our followers, certainly the audience on eNCA News on Twitter, we've seen a lot of speculation around Oscar's legal team and what kind of work and analysis they'll be doing after what Judge Masipa has said today. Dianne, I'm interested to know, in terms of murder and how the South African legal system understands murder. We don't use the degrees of murder system that they use, for example, in the States. How does South African law sort of unpack murder?
Yes, Aaron. Well, in the United States and in some other countries, they would have what they would call murder in the first degree, which I'm sure many of our viewers would have heard in popular shows like Law and Order. And then there would also be murder in the second degree. What we have here in South Africa is what they refer to as dolus directus. We also have dolus eventualis, which are the two sort of forms of murder which were considered by the court. Now, when dealing with dolus directus, that would be a direct or premeditated intention to kill, and that would be when if a person planned out the murder, as we've seen it in some other cases in this country, where the specific intention was actually to kill that individual who actually ended up being killed. When it comes to dolus eventualis, it has more to do with the fact that you sort of reconcile with yourself that your actions could lead to that person's murder without it being the direct intention that you could murder that person. Now, the judge has found that in terms of both of those different levels of murder, Oscar Pistorius is not guilty of those two, and instead referring to the alternative charge that the state has given. She hasn't explicitly said that he's guilty of culpable homicide, but she has said that he was negligent in his actions on that night, Aaron.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of that, you're saying that with the dolus charge, we have an intention to murder, which would be like a hit, for example. Then we have the eventualis, which is where the shooter, the killer, has the understanding that their actions could cause murder, but that's not necessarily the direct intent. You're saying Judge Masipa has ruled both of those out, and now what remains to be kind of finally ruled on is this question of culpable homicide. Dianne, just moving on, I'd like for us to just take an overview and a look at the whole sort of arc of today in court, the different themes and evidences that Judge Masipa referred to, the WhatsApp messages, some of the witnesses that have been on the stand, and Oscar Pistorius' own testimony. Can you just give us an overview of that arc?
Well, Aaron, I mean, it was quite interesting to actually hear the issues that Judge Masipa chose to focus on. We'd heard a litany of evidence here, numerous witnesses testifying about the sound of cricket bats, the sound of different screams on the night, whether it was Oscar Pistorius screaming or whether it was a woman's scream. And at the end of the day, what it really came down to was what was Oscar Pistorius' intention at the time of the shooting. And that's one of the things that Judge Masipa actually pointed out. She said that a lot of the evidence by the neighbors wasn't particularly helpful, in the sense that I think I may have lost you there, Aaron. I don't know if you've lost me.
I can still hear you, Dianne.
You can still hear me. All right. Well, in the sense that the neighbors were they testified about what they heard, not necessarily about what they saw. And they were when put up against the timeline that was given to the court, a lot of that testimony couldn't actually be relied on. Judge Masipa also pointed out that Oscar Pistorius was not a very reliable witness, and that he'd given the court varying sort of testimony and different versions of his own evidence. And that was what some of the main points that came out today.
Yes, and quite interesting to see, in fact, the cameras did pan to Oscar Pistorius as she said that, as she detailed his performance as a witness, and quite a sort of, not a grimace, but a wince on Oscar Pistorius's face as she explained why she considered him to be a poor witness. And also, Dianne, on that point you were making about the neighbors, certainly she spoke about this being such a social media trial, how the fact that there's been a lot of reporting, but also conversations on platforms like Twitter that may have affected their testimony. So anyone who's interested, eNCA.com has a live blog for the trial. We are on eNCA.com/Oscar trial. We're certainly interested in feedback on eNCA News, which is our Twitter account. And Dianne, you, I'm sure tomorrow will be providing regular updates via your Twitter account. Yes, so that's Dianne Hawker, and I'm Erin Marisa Bates on Twitter. Thanks so much for your time, Dianne.